Welcome to our coverage of the Noor Salman trial here on ClickOrlando.com. I'm Lisa Bell. Just hours ago, the judge denied a motion filed by Noor Salman's defense attorneys to get a mistrial. Salman's attorneys and family say she is innocent. Comes the same day the defense revealed Omar Mateen's father was an FBI informant. Outside the courtroom, a family representative says the evidence shown over the past 2 weeks shows nothing.
There's either some sort of cover-up or there's some sort of huge incompetence, and I don't know what's worse. Because what happened is 49 people are dead and we should be outraged, and not pointing the finger at Noor Salman, but asking law enforcement how they allowed this to happen. They had the criminal within their grips. They interviewed him so many times. His father joined the interview, who worked for the FBI at the same time. The FBI agent, Martin, mentioned today and testified that the father of Omar Mateen called him so many times upset that they were investigating the son.
Let's get to News 6 investigator Mike DeForest. And Mike, we saw several witnesses called to the stand by the defense today, and we could see some closing statements by Wednesday.
It's looking like we could hear closing arguments with the jury getting it possibly late Wednesday or Thursday. The big thing everybody was talking about today was this motion that was filed late last night from the defense seeking either a mistrial or a dismissal of the charges, the dismissal of this case. And in a nutshell, they were alleging that it was not until just this past weekend on Saturday that the government turned over to the defense information about Pulse gunman Omar Mateen's father, Siddiqui Mateen. He made a lot of media appearances right after the Pulse shooting, condemning the shooting. He also very famously appeared at a Hillary Clinton campaign rally right over her shoulder. So a lot of people may remember who Omar Mateen's father was. Well, come to find out, the defense says that they just learned over the weekend that for the 10 years or so prior to the Pulse attack, Siddiqui Mateen was a confidential source for the FBI, and that right after the Pulse nightclub attack, they went into his house and found some receipts showing that he had made some money transfers to Turkey and Afghanistan. And now apparently Omar Mateen's father is under criminal investigation for those money transfers. And finally, the prosecution revealed to the defense that Omar Mateen's father, Siddiqui, may have once been accused of doing some fundraising to, quote, commit terror or commit some kind of, quote, attack on the Pakistan government. So the defense is claiming we didn't learn about this till this weekend. We need to throw this trial out. We are joined by attorney Mark O'Mara here. So they're asking for a mistrial. How big of a deal is this late in the game?
Well, first of all, quite a wrinkle at a time like this in the trial, because the government does have the affirmative obligation to turn over all information which is relevant to a type of prosecution. Certainly what we call Brady or exculpatory information. That's information that tends to show non-guilt. So the fact that we are literally halfway through the trial when this Brady information comes out is quite significant. I thought it was a very well-drafted motion. I think Judge Byron's decision on it was well within the law. He's a very smart judge and knows what he's talking about. It's very frustrating, though, as a defense attorney, to be halfway through a trial and find out that a lot of information that may have impacted on the way you present your case, both in cross-examination and also in the way you present your active defense, was now impacted negatively because the government didn't do what there's no question they should have done earlier.
Well, this whole case is about Omar Mateen's wife, Noor Salman, being accused of aiding and abetting her husband in planning and carrying out the Pulse nightclub attack. In this motion, the defense basically suggested, hey, if we had known about this a little bit earlier, we might have looked to see that perhaps Omar Mateen's father, Siddiqui, was an accomplice in this, and that if Omar Mateen was working with his dad, his wife Noor may not have known anything about this at all.
Well, and part of what we do as criminal defense attorneys is look at a case and decide what is the best, most compelling theory of defense, theory of non-guilt. And you do that after you have all the information available to you. So the fact that the government kept information about Siddiqui Mateen from the defense, thereby limiting their ability to analyze it. Just like you say, they may have been able to come up with information that says to them, or says to the jury, you know, maybe Dad has something to do with this. Maybe we look at this in a way to say, Miss Salman is not guilty, and here's an alternative method or alternative defense theory, and now they didn't have that available to them because of the government.
Now, what Judge Byron ruled in a nutshell was that that is really making a stretch based on what they know, that Omar Mateen's father was involved in the Pulse attack, and there has been no evidence presented anywhere that he played any role in it whatsoever. But the judge basically saying, even if you could get to that stretch, that perhaps maybe he was involved, it does not change the criminal charges against Noor Salman, and that perhaps she could have continued to allegedly aid and abet even if Omar Mateen's father was also playing a role.
No question, and I understand that portion of Judge Byron's ruling, and he's right. I mean, the fact that Mr. Mateen Sr. may have had some involvement in something with his son doesn't mean that the proof necessary to convict Noor Salman is not there. It's just a frustration that this information was very available to the government, similar to the fact that the information about the checking out Pulse was available to them just a few days after the attack. When you're trying to do this case as above board as possible, do it once, do it right, do it where you maintain the integrity of the process and the trust of the people. When the government doesn't turn over information which they had and should have, it undermines the very process we are required to believe in.
Well, this was the big thing everybody was talking about this morning. The judge ruled no mistrial. This will continue on to tomorrow. Some of the other witnesses we heard from today were women who said that they met Omar Mateen on dating websites. Plenty of Fish, a couple others. One of them admitted that she had had a romantic relationship with Omar Mateen. And you could tell that the defense was trying to bring these women out, was to basically suggest if Omar Mateen was carrying out these secret romantic relationships behind Noor Salman's back, then perhaps he was hiding other things he was doing, such as planning a terrorist attack.
Well, again, that is the relevance of it. You can't just bring out that information to suggest something negative about Mateen, attack his credibility. That in and of itself can't be done for its own purposes. But when you're trying to lay the groundwork as part of your defense to say Noor Salman didn't know about what he was doing, here's other examples of what she obviously didn't know about what he was doing, and that he's very deceptive, and that he will do whatever he wants, even in violation of a marriage. So why not do other such violations of the marriage by keeping it out of the loop of information of such a terrorist attack?
And one of the names we keep hearing over and over and over again in this trial is Nemo, a friend of Omar Mateen's. He actually took the stand today. We heard from Nemo finally, and he testified that A, he didn't know anything about the Pulse nightclub attack. He hadn't seen Omar Mateen in quite a while, but he testified that he did know Omar Mateen would often tell his wife, Noor Salman, hey, I'm going out with my friend Nemo, when in fact, Mateen was going out to see other women. This plays into the defense because the prosecution is claiming that Noor Salman told Omar Mateen, hey, if your mom calls, tell her you're out with your friend Nemo. And this is supposedly how she aided and abetted Omar Mateen. Well, here we've got Nemo on the witness stand saying Noor Salman has heard this line before, that sure, Mateen's out with me.
Yes, and actually that gives some credibility to Noor Salman's suggestion that she was just following her husband's lead, because that's exactly what he said about that, and Nemo documented it. So again, it's an easy step to take from her being deceived in one sense to her being deceived, or unaware at the very least, about the planned terrorist attack.
Several other witnesses that the defense called today were family members and friends of Noor Salman, and they all basically set the same tone, which was Noor Salman was this very sweet, loving, motherly woman, but also a very simple woman, a woman who didn't quite understand things. One friend talked about how Noor Salman worked at Kmart and almost got in trouble for stealing from the cash register till the manager realized she just didn't understand money and didn't know how to balance it, and as a result, they moved her to a different job. And I think this is what they're, first of all, trying to show were these suspicious shopping trips that she made with Omar Mateen in the days leading up to the nightclub attack, and suggesting that she didn't realize what an extravagant spree that was.
Well, the defense has to humanize it. We talked about this when the trial was just beginning. They've got to get across to the jury that Noor Salman is a mom, she's a wife, but she's not particularly sharp, not particularly aware of what's going on, because they have to be able to, in effect, sell to the jury that she really didn't know what her husband was doing when her husband was amassing weapons, planning what he might have been planning, all sort of under her nose. So they have to be able to explain that even being, quote, under her nose doesn't mean that she was aware of it.
And I try not to give my opinion too much, but try to give you a little bit of color of the courtroom here when some of these family members, particularly Noor Salman's uncle, took the stand. I think he really did give off a sense of friendliness, and he wasn't a defense witness by any means. He got choked up several times, especially when he would look over at his niece Noor Salman and talked about her life. And I would imagine things like that are what could really resonate with the jury when they see the genuineness in their eyes about their family relationship, whatever the allegations are against the defendant.
Well, and remember, the premise of this is the Pulse massacre. That's what everyone is thinking about. That is certainly what the jury is thinking about. So you have to separate her from Mateen and again try to personalize her, try and show her to be the three-dimensional human being that she really is and was the day before the Pulse shooting, because you've got to be able to get her to the point where the jury understands how she could have been so fooled by her husband.
Attorney Mark O'Mara, we really appreciate you helping digest this very busy day in court. It looks like there's going to be only one more day left of testimony. We expect the last defense witness to be called tomorrow, an expert in false confessions who will reportedly try to suggest that Noor Salman had words put in her own mouth when the FBI was interviewing her just hours after the Pulse nightclub attack. After that, it looks like closing arguments could begin Wednesday with the jury beginning deliberations. So we will be out here throughout the rest of the week. We're going to send it back to you, Lisa.
All right, Mike DeForest, thank you. And you can get complete coverage, including our team's minute-by-minute tweets from inside the courthouse. Go to clickorlando.com/Noor Salman trial. And join us tomorrow morning for another discussion. Our coverage begins at 8:30 right here on clickorlando.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lisa Bell.